We've got some
Hey,
fresh
I'm
new young
Luis.
talents
And
doing some
I'm
things that I know you
Luis.
And you're
haven't
listening
heard
to the
before.
Content is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit.
If you'd like to learn more on how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com.
Yeah, guys, today, from the hospitality industry MVP to full online reinvention.
Ooh. Was that good? That was the first time that you read that?
Yeah, that's good.
I love it. And I think today's guest, he has been such an inspiration for us too.
Yeah.
And I hope it does that for you in the audience as well. So with that being said, guys, please go ahead and subscribe. Smash that subscribe button so you know when the episodes come out. Even though we're live almost every single day, but you'll get them right on your phone. And if you want to follow us on social media, feel free at BizBrosco on Facebook and Instagram.
That's right, guys. And if you find this episode impactful, which I am 100% sure you will because it's an amazing story, make sure to share with everybody else and leave a 5-star review.
All right. Snap. Run left, sprint forward, backpedal, kneel, get back up, sprint back. No, we're not leading a workout here. This is what today's guest was doing when we first met him. His weapon of choice, a camera.
Today's guest has worked with some of the biggest names in the ClickFunnels market. He's one of the coolest people you'll ever meet, and he knows how to rock a scarf. Guys, talk about differentiating yourself. He's one classy dude. Just check his YouTube channel, his website, and you'll notice it.
His superpower is to inspire, motivate, and educate others. Although he looks like a young fella, he's a 10-year veteran of the hospitality industry, including Event Director of the Year. Not to mention that he has owned and operated a successful event photography studio for 14 years. Now that's impressive.
That is very impressive. Guys, please welcome proud husband and father, uber successful photographer, and proud Jeep owner, Mr. Don Mamone.
Yay! Welcome.
What's up, guys? What's up? I don't even know about that lead-in. That was probably the best lead-in I've had ever, I think. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you, Don? We are so excited to have you here at Content is Profit.
Thanks, man. I'm humbled and honored to share this stage with some of the people that you've already interviewed. It's truly, my mind is blown. So thanks for having me here.
Of course,
Yeah,
man.
of course.
It's, again, like we said, it's really an honor. And you have been such a big inspiration in the last couple of months. They have not been easy months. And you've proven that there's a way. And we're going to chat a little bit more about it in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, definitely. Before we start, though, a little fun fact. I actually now, reading the intro, I'm like, wow, that's actually not the first time we saw Don. You remember the first time we saw him?
Offer mine.
No. We were actually
okay.
in the plane and going to Offermine, and we saw
Last
you
September, yes.
and your wife, Emily, right in front of us, and we were like, I wonder if they're going to the event, because you guys had like a ClickFunnels notebook, and you guys were taking notes, and we're like, yeah, they're probably going to the event. Next thing we know, you guys are the photographers,
That's right.
crushing it. We're like,
that was the plane from Texas, actually. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're like, ha. Yeah. So it's meant to be.
Yeah, we swag it up when we go to events for Russell, for Steven, for all those folks, because we want to be part of the community.
I love it.
That's awesome.
All right, Don. So why don't you share a little bit with the audience, right? Like where we share a little bit in the intro about what you did or what you still do. I'm not sure, and we're going to discover that in a second. But why don't you share that past experience? Like what are you doing now, and where are you going?
Man, that is, I should ask myself that question, because I think that's what I'm doing almost every day. I started in hospitality in 1999. I'm dating myself, I'm showing my age now. But I started with Hilton Hotels back then, and I was the director of the corporate events department. It was an awesome environment in which to exist, because your whole job, your whole responsibility is taking the group sales and you're servicing conferences from 50 to 5,000. And wow. I did that for 8 years, and I'll be perfectly candid. And this is not something I'm ashamed of. I burned out. That is the type of job where you're in first, out last, grinding it out 7 days a week, a lot of the times. And it just got to a point where I was like, man, I'm approaching my 30s. I don't know that this is something I'm going to want to do for the rest of my life. And so I transitioned, and that's how I ended up in Dallas, man. I took a job at the corporate office. And I tell this anecdote because it's so important how the universe leads you. I took a job at Hilton's corporate office, and it was Monday through Friday, largely 9 to 5. It involved a ton of travel. And what it meant was, with all this extra time I had not working these longer hours, I decided to pick up my camera again, which was a passion I had from way back in high school. It was just a hobby, something I really loved to do. And in 2 years, I got so into it. I just really, it kind of grabbed a hold of me again. I was like, I'm never happier than when I'm working with my camera. And flash forward 2 years after I moved to Dallas, and I was a full-time photographer.
Wow.
So that was my big first transition. I thought I was going to be in hospitality for, just kind of working your way up the company ladder, but I was so much happier with a camera in my hand that I knew that that's what I needed to do.
I love it. A lot of people, I feel, struggle with finding their passion, right? And maybe sometimes they're like, okay, I need to find a passion, right? So it feels like we all need a passion, right? And I believe that maybe we don't need a passion. It does help a ton. But how did you find your passion in the camera? Was this by accident? Was this like something that you were doing as a hobby? Was this something that, you were planning on doing?
That's a great question. So first time I ever picked up a camera was in high school. A friend of mine's father gave him a camera. He took a photography class, and he was like, yeah, it was cool. And I said, well, if you don't mind, I'll borrow the camera. I'll take the class. And I took the class and I loved it, but it was just a high school class. It was just a little bit of fun. I did the same thing in college. It never seemed like a business, I think is what it boils down to. It was a hobby. It was a passion. It was something I had fun doing. But it wasn't until I hit a sort of milestone in my life where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. What do I want to do? And that's when the sort of passion, the idea of this hobby became, why don't I try to make a business of this? And that's when I started to say, how do you make money with a camera?
Yeah.
And I love the idea that I was creating art, because I'll be perfectly candid, I'm not much of an artist. My wife, Emily, she is like an artist to the core. She loves to play music. She can paint. She can draw. She can obviously make beautiful art with her camera. So it was a way for me to indulge the artistic side of me in sort of a technical manner. Yeah. And it basically got to a point that after a number of years of basically doing a job that I loved, and it transitioning to a job that I did, and then transitioning to a job that I didn't really love anymore, I really wanted to try to find something that I knew would sustain. I knew it was something I was going to want to do sort of into perpetuity. And that's where the love of what I did and what I wanted to do to make money kind of came together.
Yeah, that is pretty cool, and something I would like the people that are listening to this takeaway is kind of like that struggle of letting go sometimes, I mean, you said you thought you were going to be in the hospitality industry for, forever. And a lot of us, we go out of college thinking, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my days. Or we go studying into something and we're like, I have to do this no matter what. And then we are so committed into it that we have a very difficult time of letting go and saying, you know what, maybe there's a better option out there that doesn't involve burnout, for example, right? And I think, like my brother said, it is difficult for people to actually let go of that feeling. What do you think it is? I don't know. I'm thinking around maybe it's people will be like disappointed of themselves if they let go. Like, hey, I've been putting so much work into this. What do you think it is?
I think you're spot on. I think humans are their own worst critic by definition and by nature. We obviously give latitude a lot of the time and sort of forgiveness or freedom to other people, but to ourselves, we're our own worst critic, and we feel like we've either failed or we haven't tried hard enough. I made essentially the choice to leave the industry that I had been doing, and you have to accept that sometimes that's because it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. That you were able to do it for as long as you had been doing it, and even though you thought you'd do it for longer, maybe you were wrong then and not so much wrong now. So I think you're spot on. You just have to accept the fact that we only know what we know based on the situation we're in right now. When I started the job, I loved it. I loved everything about it, and I loved the hotel I was at. I loved the people I worked with, and as things changed, those variables change, and you just have to be true to yourself and true to your heart and know that it'll work out. And I think that's the other thing, you two, is that people think they think the worst, or they let the fear get a hold of them. I mean, there's nothing comfortable about sort of uprooting your existence and saying, I'm going to change something.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get a little shove from the universe by, what we're going through right now, or a family change. You decide you're having a kid. Sometimes the universe does it. Other times you just have to sort of have the strength and the courage to make the change yourself. So,
I agree. And I think we've heard it plenty of times that is kind of like fear is actually the indicator of growth, right? I mean, obviously it depends on the fear. No, we're not talking if you're like in front of a bear, then it's different circumstances.
You're gonna push yourself physically very hard at that point in time.
Yeah, but like in that, like kind of like that diameter of the comfort zone, when you're like right at the edge, when you're like exploring into uncharted territories that you're about to, experience growth. I think there's always fear. I think that diameter is called fear, actually, And like you say, like change doesn't come easy. I mean, for us, we had to let go of the idea of playing professional soccer, right? We grew up, that was our dream. That's all we did. We just practiced soccer. We came to the States because of soccer. When it didn't happen, I mean, that was like a mandatory change because we couldn't pursue it anymore. And it was like, oh, wow. Like, I'm scared. What do we do now? But we have no other choice than to take action and search for something else, right? And I mean, I think that's how we fall in love with, at least that's how I fall in love with entrepreneurship, and like trying to build something. I think that is now the coolest thing ever,
Yeah, I agree 100%.
When you use the word fear, it's interesting because you can look at fear from two different angles, obviously, right? Fear can be something that holds you back, but fear can also be an unbelievable motivator, When I left hospitality, it essentially was, I was presented with a choice. The project I was on was ending, and I could either go back to hotels, or I needed to sort of separate employment. And I remember having the conversation with Emily. I said, I don't know what it's like to not have a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, or whatever type of job you have where you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. She had largely been self-employed and a motivated entrepreneur her whole life. And she's like, you make it work, you make it happen. You have a lot of faith and belief, and you work really hard. And so I said, I can't imagine going back into hotels and working those hours now that I've had a taste of doing what I love so much. And the fear of not succeeding was far more powerful than the fear of not having a paycheck. I was like, okay, fine, I'll give up the paycheck. And the fear of just basically not hustling enough to make it work was the motivator rather than something that was the limiter.
Oh man, I love that because I feel like I commented this to my brother a few times. That is, I mean, I never quite had the 9 to 5, but like I was a waiter. And we had this job where we coached little kids 2 to 6 years old how to play soccer. And I remember I told my brother once after this finally started working out, right? I was like, man, I don't think I could ever go back. Like even if I was like in need so bad, I'm like, I can't. I feel like I will be taking a step backwards. I was like, no, I just want to move forward. Except even if it work, even if it like looks tough, right, for us, and it doesn't matter. Like I'm gonna try, right? And again, we're building. I feel like while building the business, we have built the skill of acquiring customers, which is probably one of the greatest skills people can ever have, right?
Yeah.
And like I really so much of the story. I love it.
No, I agree 100%. And I think like in this like journey of entrepreneurship, content creation, right? Because when you start talking about content as a vehicle to, grow your business, right? You start putting yourself out there, and it's not easy. And then you embark in this self-development like crazy trip that you're like, what am I even saying? Like, who is this person I'm talking about? And that's yourself. And you're like, what? I thought I really knew myself. And you really didn't. And then it's like this whole crisis of like, okay, I need to actually develop myself and level up big time to make things happen, right? Do you ever experience, going through that transition into like going into this entrepreneurial and probably now this new phase that we haven't gotten to yet, have you experienced something like that? And then if you did, like, what are some of the things that you do to overcome, I guess, I don't want to say fear, but like to overcome those like maybe false beliefs that you already have into moving into a new you?
Yeah, man. So when Emily and I first started, we served the social community a lot. So one of my good friends and mentors was a wedding photographer, and so when I was talking to them about, how do you make money with your camera? There's weddings, there's sports, there's fashion, and things like that. And I think because he and a lot of his circle and a lot of the people that I knew through him were doing weddings, and I am sort of a hopeless romantic. I do like the hearts and the flowers. I was like, okay, this will be a good fit for me. I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot. I took to it really, really well. I really enjoyed it. But, and this is a huge however, it's a very saturated marketplace, right? And in the world of photography, DJ, a lot of the creative things, there's very low barrier to entry, right? And so you asked me a really good question. The thing that I feared the most, or the obstacle that I had to get over, was that there was going to be enough business for me, that we were going to be able to, as you said, acquire a customer, right? Yeah. And do enough so that we were talking about we needed to support ourselves, and ultimately we wanted to have kids probably, so we were going to need to support a family. Yeah. So the biggest thing was trying to find the way where you could say, how do we make sure that when we enter this marketplace that's already kind of saturated with other professionals that do what we do, how do you make yourself a differentiated, unique prospect that the person says, this is who we want to hire? Yeah. And you guys know me well enough to know, my heart, my humility. I have a lot of trouble being a character, and although I don't have a problem being in the spotlight, chatting with you guys, I could talk up on stage. I don't like being the center of attention. Yeah. But I'm gonna tell you guys some things that I feel were really pivotal for Emily and I in our growth. One of the things that we decided we wanted to be able to say was, anytime somebody was talking about something that we were going to document, we wanted them to know that they don't need a photographer. They need the Mamones. Because there's a million photographers. You can go out and look in the marketplace, and you'll find lots of talented photographers, but there's only one, the Mamones. And these are the reasons why you want to seek us out specifically. Yeah. And that was one of the big things, right? When we identified, how do you deal in a marketplace that's saturated? You remove yourself, in a sense, from that group of people, and you sort of try to elevate yourself to a new place, so that people then say, we don't need a photographer, we need them. So that was probably the first and biggest. It wasn't the only, that's for sure, but it was one of the first and one of the biggest.
That's really cool. I mean, first, I did some wedding photography too, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm not gonna lie, I was not the biggest fan of wedding photography. But
it's a fun stage.
But yeah, no, I mean, you get to know some really cool people as well, which is I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the photography business, to be honest. But what I love about this story, man, is how you guys, kind of like, they don't need a photographer, but they need the Mamones. And that just reminds me of the category king, right? Like you guys being the category king of your space. That even we're actually watching this video yesterday, and this kid was raffling a Samsung tablet, but he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm raffling a Samsung iPad."
No, the iPad of the Samsung. Yeah,
and we were like, talk about category king, right? That he's just like even referring as a tablet as iPads already,
and even relating that concept, done that with Todd, right? The unique mechanism, right? As a photographer, like the unique mechanism is you and Emily is the Mamones, is your team, right? And people are like, what's that? Like, now you can establish a conversation. So let this be a lesson for those listening and watching on how to separate yourself from that massive pack, right? Yep. And do that. So thank you for that amazing lesson, because we actually struggled with that for a long time, and still trying to find the right message, right? And it's like through this type of content that we've been able to do it. So thank you for bringing it to so easy terms to understand.
Sure. Yeah, I'm pretty curious, about Emily and you, right? Like, how's that dynamic, from start to 14 years later? I mean, that's a long time, like, if I got this guy right here for 14 years next to me, I don't know what's going to happen, so.
One will be on a date somewhere.
It's not for everyone. We're very fortunate for a number of different reasons. Emily and I excel in similar ways, but in very different projects. And so one of my favorite examples was, we were operating photographers before we met. We came together, we started chatting. She was doing more like commercial and fashion work. I was doing more events and weddings. And she learned a lot of her abilities as a photographer by being a model. And that's a very unique thing. Most people that are photographers haven't been a muse or a subject like she was.
Yeah.
And so she brought a wealth of knowledge regarding being the person on the other side of the camera, which for me, I'm awkward. I don't like to be photographed particularly. I'm very insecure about that. So my anecdote there is, I said, you know, I've got a bridal session for this bride that I'm photographing in a couple of weeks. Would you like to come along and we can photograph together or whatever? And don't get me wrong, I feel like I did a nice job. My clients were always happy. Yep. But when she came on that first session with me, first one, I watched her communicate with the bride, talk to the bride about her anatomy, the way to hold herself, the way to position herself, the way she used light. Because of her knowledge as a muse and as a subject, I just looked at her, I was like, okay, so you're going to have to do this from now on, because you basically have just shattered my thought that this is, I thought I was doing okay, but you're obviously, this is your skill set, you crush it. So in our business, it became very obvious where I would oftentimes host certain businesses in my arena and she would do the other businesses in hers. When it came to corporate, we just aligned really well. We projected really well. So our dynamic has always been strong for that. I think that we stayed in our strength buckets. We like to rely on each other. There's not a lot of, the only competitive nature in us is that we sort of iron sharpens iron. We level each other up all the time. We drive each other to do better, be more artistic. So it's been 14 great years, man. There's not a lot of downside to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm getting something from this story that I want people to take away, like besides the chemistry, right? You know, like my brother and I, for example, we had a moment where we actually took a look at each other here across the desk and we were like, dude, you know what? There's two of us. Yeah, we're doing exactly the same thing. Like we're not playing to our strength, right? And that's what you're talking about with Emily, that you identify it pretty quickly and then was like, okay, you know what? Like she's elevating, you know, my game and I'm elevating her game, right? It's a win-win situation. And honestly, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like it maybe would have taken you way longer to come to that realization if she wasn't there, right? And I think that's key when it comes to getting people outside of your circle, whether it is your job or your industry even, because sometimes we think we know everything sometimes, right? We're like, yeah, this is how we operate, this is how we do things. And then someone comes along with this little piece of knowledge, this little something different that they have, and it's like, wow.
It completely shatters what you thought it was the right thing.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, so that's how we can do it even better, right? Yeah. And I just found that so interesting. So sorry, Don, you were gonna say?
No, that's fine. It's super interesting that you say that, because here's the deal: when you're an entrepreneur, business owner, you thrive on confidence. You thrive on your ability to work through, push through, make it happen, all those types of things, which can sometimes, I think, leave you in a position where you feel vulnerability or a willingness to sort of let other people in. You feel like that's a weakness, right? And I can't even count on one hand. Let's say, the busier we got and the more successful we got, we say with, again, humility and gratitude. Emily and I were oftentimes off photographing in different places.
Yeah.
And that was great, because dividing and conquering meant, again, growing the brand, growing business. We brought on two or three other photographers, but we were so comfortable allowing and accepting that other person had a valid advice, thought, seeing things from a different angle. I would be on a project and I'd know that she was off, and I'd say, hey, can you FaceTime with me real quick? I have a question for you. And we'd look at the scene and we'd talk about lighting. I'd talk about, creative portrait. Maybe it was of Russell backstage. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking I'm going to do a quick creative portrait of Russell next time he comes backstage. What do you think about this or that? And if you're not willing to let that in, then it definitely will hamper your growth. And I'm not even saying that's as a negative thing. It's almost like you're not allowed to do that, because if you do, then you sort of your confidence wanes. And being entrepreneurs, it's all about knowing that you can, and knowing that you can improve, and knowing you can do better. But there's something to be said for finding that group of people from the outside. It could be a spouse, partner, business partner, preferred professional, somebody that you've got on Voxer that you just appreciate their opinion, and reach out to them and let them know, like, hey, I'm really trying to push myself here. and take that in, because you guys make a great point. It's easy to get caught up and not to listen to that and not to grow as fast as you could.
I loved every second of that story too, and I think I want to highlight a point that I think it went under the radar for a second, and is the fact of Emily having experience on being the subject, right, on the photography scene, right? And sometimes as business owners or even content creators, right, we don't put ourselves in the situation to feel the pain, to feel like what it's like to be on the other side, right? And then if we start like teaching or even selling like something that we haven't really experienced as a client, sometimes we might say things that don't relate to our dream customer. And, you know, bringing it back to the entrepreneurship, to the sales side, to the content side, I feel like what she did there, it happened it looks like it happened very organically, but it has such a big value to what your business is, because now she has that unique point of view. So I think is what happened when we're like, okay, you know, if we want to, with our story, when we started to publish, like we were going out selling content, we knew all the technical sides, we knew all the addition side, like all the amazing things that, you know, you could do as a content creator or producer, right? We knew that, but we weren't producing content at the time. So the rapport like completely went down, and we're like, okay, we need to be in the position there so we can speak properly. We need to know what it is. And I think a lot of business owners or entrepreneurs miss that point. So I encourage everybody listening that if you haven't been in that position, go experience it for a second, right? And if you're creating content, or if you know, go and try to be a client and then talk about those experiences, because I think that's such an important thing, because I think that's one of the biggest elements that we were able to like put our mind around and execute, and it got us so much further. And, you know, with Emily and you, it happened very organically, but we don't have to wait for it to happen organically. Go put yourself in that position and level up like you guys did, which is amazing. So I just wanted to highlight that, because I think it flew like under the radar. And for us, that was such a big moment when we started to, you know, I like to say, drink from your own Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's, I mean, it was, definitely a transitional, is that even a word? Moment, a pivotal moment for us, right? And I want to talking about transitions, here a little bit, because you talk about, okay, being in the hospitality business and, you know, burning out, and then that leading to moving on into the photography business. But now, right, like a few months ago when Corona hit, right, like you were pretty much forced to pivot in a whole different way, right? Maybe not willingly, but I mean the business was probably impacted because of, you know, you guys are going to the coolest events and photographing the coolest people and getting to know some awesome people. But you know, I'm curious about that contrast between that change willingly and now this change that is more forceful, if you can put it in a way.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I love photography, and I love it because it allows me to stretch the artistic muscle. But there's one thing I learned in the 14 years of running a studio. Okay, believe it or not, I'm a photographer second. I'm a servant first. And one of the ways that I found that was the more Emily and I photograph, and Emily's very similar in that regard. The more we photographed, when we very first started, we got a fair amount of feedback, and we would always send out surveys, and we'd inquire about our clients, how were they happy, and a lot of the testimonials talked about the art, especially when you're talking about weddings. But as we transitioned into corporate America, and we started doing more and more corporate events, the feedback we got was about the experience we created, just as much, if not more, than the portfolio of photography we would send.
Wow.
Okay. And that was this sort of enlightening moment where I realized I'm a servant first, right? I was in the hospitality industry, which basically means you bend over backwards to ensure that customer is you're exceeding their expectations, you're being proactive, not reactive, all those things. And so basically I took what I was doing in hotels and in hospitality, and I applied it to a business. And instead of delivering a service, I was delivering a service and a product of photography. So I think it was about 5 years ago, I had some people saying like, hey, I have a question for you, in your business this, in your business that. And so I started giving out advice just based on people asking me questions.
Yeah.
And I said, Emily, I really like this. I like the idea. I like this feeling of being a servant to these people, because you're not giving a man a fish, you're teaching him how to fish.
Yeah.
They're coming to me and they're saying, hey, I need somebody to help me make sure that this effort is going to be a success. And the effort you're talking about is typically them building and running a business that's going to be their livelihood. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna start this up. And I started like a little website and I did all this little stuff. And then 3.5, or I guess it would have been 4.5 glorious years ago, my wife came out and said, I think we're pregnant. And like I said, the universe kind of tells you certain things. And at that time, the universe was like, slow your roll, buddy. You just focus on the business you're running. Yeah. And you're about to be a dad, which was obviously the biggest and best thing that's ever happened to me. Yeah. But it was about a year ago. And yeah, I think you guys will like this anecdote, because it goes to the talk about like failing faster. Yeah. And just doing something. It was March, exactly a year ago. I had photographed an event. I think it was for Russell. And then I went back to it was 10X. It was Russell speaking at 10X. And then I had to go back to Miami a little while later for another client. And while I was there, I was like, forget it. I'm just going to do it. I pressed live on my phone. I went live on Facebook, and I talked about how I was launching something new.
That's awesome.
And I gave myself 5 days. I did a 5-day countdown. I'm so excited to share this all with you. And for 5 days, I kind of restructured and built a little website and got everything going. The only problem was I hadn't given enough critical thought to my content, to my message, to what I was actually trying to do. And here was the lesson I learned. I got ahead of my skis. I basically had this countdown that the events industry was watching, and they were super excited about it. I was getting all the support, but it was a countdown to a whole lot of not enough. Yeah. It didn't deliver on the promise. And so I got over my skis, and man, did I feel terrible about it. And I beat myself up about it. And people were like, really excited for you, which was the lesson I learned that was so exciting. Was there was probably about 150 people that signed up and said, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm in. Wow. That was just such a cool feeling. Yeah. Such a cool feeling. But then at the same time, I gave myself a hard time. So fast forward to 2020, here we are. I had been putting the ball in play and putting it into motion. Yeah. But as of second week of March, the constriction, let's say, of the events industry basically brought a close to at least the operation of photography in the event space. Yeah. Our business is still here. We still can't wait to serve clients that need our photography. But at the moment, there's no need for it. So I've put 110% into something that you guys know is not the easiest transition. Yeah. And the funnest part about that is I've had the time. I'm trying to leverage that time. The people in this industry, man, the people in this industry are so gracious and giving of their time that I'm finally able to sort of like deliver on that promise from a year ago, and it's been really exciting. So it's the universe has told me what I need to be doing right now, and that's what I'm spending all my time doing.
That's such a cool story. And looking at it from the outside, right? Because when we met you, we obviously saw your photography side, right? And then this whole craziness happens, and a lot of people had to pivot real quick and adapt, and a lot of people took it better than others. And I just found such a refreshing take on what you are doing, because I was not expecting it. Maybe people that knew you and were following you for a little bit, maybe yes, but it's incredible how fast you've been taking action, which is something that people miss. Sometimes people like overthink, and then that they freeze, and then they don't execute, and then they fail, and then they blame external factors on their failure. So it was very refreshing to see how fast you pivoted, how fast you were starting to execute, and how fast you were putting people first before profits, which is something, that message that really resonated. And I want you to kind of like dive in a little bit more on that. It obviously comes from the story that you also told earlier, but how in this new phase, people first and then profit is helping you to move the ball forward and create momentum and create results, and ultimately a living for you and your family.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not providing a living yet, but
Yeah.
that's okay because I do believe in people first and profit. And so basically, what happened was I engaged with an unbelievably intelligent young lady that I knew from the wedding industry. Her name is Maggie Francisco. She's a planner, originally based out of Dallas, and now is in Columbus, Ohio, and she does super high-end destination wedding work. And what she was able to do is we started working together. She was helping me from a content strategist perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like trying to take 14 years of business experience and 10 years in hospitality, swirling around in my head and making it into a cohesive action plan.
Yeah.
And so the people first and profit is really just a principle that I've always lived by. But what we really have been distilling that into is the fact that I'm a relationship marketer at my core. I believe that the wealth in many ways of your business is directly a result of the business network that you put in play and the personal network for that matter. So that's where the people first and profit comes from, right? If you take care of people, if you nurture relationships with people, if you formulate enduring, long-standing relationships with people, the profit will come. And let me take a quick minute, guys, to tell you, the traditional definition of profit, that's not what I'm talking about here. A lot of people look at profit and they think, okay, that's earnings minus expenses. That's my profit. Yeah. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like the sort of holistic profit for each individual, how they measured their wealth.
Yeah.
I did a talk the other day and somebody said that they measure their wealth in time that they get to spend with their family. And right now they're poor in wealth because they're working 7 to 7, Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday, hardly ever seeing their kids, and they want to make a change. And so we're helping them make that change. So what it really boils down to is I'm creating programs and courses in the background here. I'm hustling to try to get together a challenge or boot camp or masterclass or whatever you want to call it that looks at sort of the fundamental elements. I've identified 4 fundamental elements that it takes to run a business and what happens when you're weak in one of those 4 fundamental elements, how you can get strong at that, how you can kind of reach a place of balance and how that's going to impact your world, how it's going to drive more clients to you, allow you more free time to spend with your family or scale your business or whatever it is. So it's a lot.
Yeah. I
as
love
you guys
it.
know.
Yeah, it's amazing though.
Yeah, no, I
Fascinating.
love. I mean, and again, just honestly, congrats, man, on the being so proactive. I love that. Man, because we saw so many people just fall into the negativity, with everything that was happening and just like being reactive to everything and then putting blames and pointing fingers, whatever. And it's like there's still opportunities, right? We just need to be proactive and go get them. And I mean, I'm not trying to, make how to say it, like least of the situation less. Like I know there are people that are having a very hard time. Like I recognize that. But again, like we do have a choice at the end of the day. Like we can decide to sit down and just cry and do nothing, or be like, okay, how am I going to move forward, right? How am I going to be proactive? And I absolutely love that from you and Emily, right? Like you guys are amazing. And something that you were talking about in that story is the relationship, right? We actually have what you were talking about wealth, right? About profit. We call it collateral revenue. Yeah. Which are those things that exactly they might not be measured in dollar amounts, but they might be measured in time with your family, for example, right? For us, a huge collateral revenue that has come because of pivoting thanks to the coronavirus has been these relationships. Like we didn't have a podcast before the coronavirus, and what happened is that we lost one of our biggest clients. 9 locations. They called us and they were like, you know what, guys, we're closing the locations, so we don't need of your services anymore. And I mean, it was tough. Yeah. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit relieved because I didn't enjoy working with them that much. That talks a lot too about dream clients and all that stuff.
I freaked out.
But my brother freaked out. I remember that he took the call too. So after he hung up, I already knew what happened. I could feel like the energy in the room. And I turned to my brother and he's just like sunburned. They're just sitting down. I was like, oh no, oh no. So I'm like, hey, like, is it okay? Just go for a walk, you know, just leave today. That's fine. And then we started talking and we're like, you know what? Like, it's an opportunity. Like, we didn't enjoy working with them, right? We had to convince them for us to work with us. Like, we didn't enjoy going to their places and filming and doing all this stuff. We're like, you know what? Now the time that we gain from this is actually a gain for us, because now we have all this time back.
Yeah.
Let's use it for something even better, you know, something that we've been wanting to do, which is the podcast. And that has allowed us to build amazing relationships, you know, and having amazing conversations like the one that we're having right now.
And to make that long story short, it saved our business.
Exactly.
It literally saved our business, and it flipped 180 degrees. We were able to hire team members. We're up to 3 full-time team members now. So that's what I'm saying. And just like you are taking action, we were able to do that too, at a different environment, different level. But at the same time, you are creating all that collateral revenue, all that opportunity. You're actually chasing it and creating your own reality, which is the power that a lot of people think they don't have.
Yeah.
But by taking action,
Well,
go ahead.
it's not intuitive or easy, and I know that's not what you guys are insinuating, because you guys are talking about just exactly how hard it was to build and then to have yourselves lose a client. You know, this idea. I'm very fortunate. I am so fortunate to have been surrounded by, you know, Russell and Steven's team, and making connections with them and speaking with them, and then having them sort of walk alongside me in my journey. And I'm not even close to being able to say that this is a success. I feel like it's a successful effort.
Yeah.
Yes.
But man, there's a million reasons why I could not be doing it. Right. There's a million reasons why I feel like, you know, even if I reflect back on the way we started this conversation, right? Saturated in the marketplace, you know, you can talk yourself out of anything, but what it really boiled down to is at this moment, first of all, of course, because you, just like you two being partners, you know, Emily and I started getting the phone calls in March. Hey, listen, we're so sorry guys, but with everything going on, we have to cancel this event. And, you know, we get it. Totally understand it.
Yeah.
She was the one who looked at me and said, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. You know, we kind of propped each other up. Yeah. But then after that, it's really, it's almost like you don't have a choice. Does that make sense? Yeah. No matter how hard it is, all the reasons why. I've never done a podcast. I hadn't interviewed people before. I don't know how to create a course. I don't know how to do all these different things. And I said, you know what? None of that matters, because I don't have a choice, right? It's almost like the universe is forcing you into something, and this is just my chosen outlet right now. So it's sort of nice to have that backwind pushing you along. At the same time, every once in a while, I'm kind of like, I'm ready for a cushion instead of a push. But
and that's okay. I mean, those are different things that come, and like you said, like the importance of that network, right? The people that you surround yourself with. A lot of times we stop progress because we limit ourselves in the relationships that we're starting to build, or we try to build, and then we start talking to the wrong people, right? The wrong mindset maybe, and we don't identify until later.
Yeah, I really want to like drive home the fact of relationships right now, how important they are. Oh man, I think a lot of people, and I was one of them, came into the online game thinking, oh, I'm gonna make a bunch of money sitting in my underwear in the sofa at the house without having to talk to anybody, and I'm still gonna have 18 hours free in the day. You know, like, dude, no, like, not at all, right? And I spent 3 years thinking like that, right? And not publishing, not building relationships like I should have been doing. And honestly, it wasn't until we actually joined other communities and we started getting ourselves out there and meeting people and talking and building these amazing relationships that our business started growing. So I really, really want to drive this point home for people. I think, yes, there are some people that manage to do that, but they might be 0.00001% of all the online entrepreneurs. Everybody else have to do the relationship game. Like they are out there. At the end of the day, you are the average of what's the saying? You're the average of the 5 people you hang around
the most.
Yeah. So, I mean,
and anecdotally, you guys, I mean, let's talk about it. Emily met you two first at Offer Mind, right?
Yes.
So you saw us on the plane, but we didn't have a chance to interact. And then Emily saw you, and when you walked up, Emily's like, "Oh, this is my husband. These guys are great. You need to chat with them." So we chatted quite a bit, and then we started to chat more and more at subsequent events. Flash forward to Funnel Hacking Live, right? 5,000 people. Yet we still managed to find you and chat with you. Yep. And in that one moment, that night, it was, I think, the last night or the second to the last night, we were standing in the foyer with Cassie and Jorge. Yeah. And I knew Cassie from before, but I'd never interacted with her. And we had taken her picture for her 2 Comma Club, and I connected with her, so I made sure she got a hold of it. And I just started chatting with her right there. Like we had really started to connect there. And then when you walked up, I was like, you guys need to know these guys. And so that's the sort of 6 degrees of separation in the way that the exponential growth of relationships are. You know, I know that you guys have become close with them, and I think that they've been on your show once, maybe twice. I cherish them. They are two of the people that have been supportive, encouraging, generous, and giving of their time and knowledge. Like, that's how this works. And I agree with you guys that people sometimes feel like, oh, internet marketing game. And to be perfectly candid, even in the wedding and events industry, Maggie and I have talked about this a great deal. People will spend 20 hours a week trying to figure out why their Instagram feed isn't generating more engagement and leads, but they would never spend that 20 hours a week going out and shaking hands with people and being in touch with people and establishing relationships. They feel like social media is a channel, right? It's a way to have your voice be heard and your brand be recognized. It is not the way you build a business. And this is my humble opinion, of course, but Emily and I, we never really looked at those kind of metrics, and we built a sustainable, successful business because, I mean, it was basically, we use that for brand recognition. And if somebody says, are you on Instagram? Yes, of course we are. We're visual artists. Come take a look at our portfolio. Confirmation that we know what we're doing. But the core of our business was built on the backs of relationships that we've been trying to get together for. Maggie just commented she's anti-social media.
If you guys are watching, I love it.
I mean, I'm gonna, like, I agree, right? And I think social media, and again, it's called social for a reason, but like people are just in search of that me factor, like give me all the likes, give me all the views. Like they just want it for them. It's social. Like go, like, yes, I agree 100%, and I think people need to go out there and shake hands. Well, maybe right now give some fist bumps, but elbow bumps, right? But I do think if you spend those 20 minutes in social media instead of worrying why my content is not like pulling enough people, spend those 20 minutes commenting in other people, sending DMs to other people, right? Like actually being social in social media, using it to engage. You can start really good relationships through social media, right? And I mean, we said this example before, but thanks to good engaging in social media and a little bit of leverage, we managed to get Todd Brown into the show, right? And have a direct conversation with him that was freaking invaluable for us.
Probably,
right?
I mean, money value, that could be $50,000 to spend an hour with him, maybe. I don't know, 20, 30. But, like, sure. I mean, who knows? Like, just the power that these relationships has, and now we have the opportunity, like you have with different people that you network with. But it's that thing. I mean, another example I remember, and this is like practical examples, guys. If you're listening, you can actually apply this today and actually see movement and positive movement in your social profiles. But Louis House, big influencer, he posted, hey guys, here's the feed. You guys can network, post here what you guys do, right? And I'm like, oh man, why not? Let's actually do it. And then post what you do, and then go into somebody else's comment and ask him a question about what they do. And I think this is amazing because he's utilizing his platform to connect with people. And this was at the beginning of COVID, where everybody's freaking out. Oh my God, I don't have any business, right? So I go in there. Never in my life have engaged with a post of Louis. Go in, put my stuff in there, go through like 3 different ones, say the same thing, like, oh, that's pretty interesting, things that maybe align with what I do. Amazing relationships happen from there. A client came out of that engagement because she needed something that I offer, and I'm like, okay, perfect. Let's actually I'm so happy that we actually have a solution for you. Amazing testimonial after that. Then we connected with Ryan, invited us onto his show. Amazing experience too. Now we're connecting, and now we have relationships all over the place because of the beauty of the network that you mentioned, the relationships and the value. And you mentioned the 6 degree of the separation. I feel it's like now with the current tools is 2 degrees of separation, because you never know who that person knows or might connect you with, or just because you're providing value in a conversation. You don't have to give anything for free. It's just the time.
Yeah, and you guys have done a really, really great job of highlighting the difference between sort of the vanity, like sort of surface level, superficial use of social media, and the way to use it as a creator or an extension of relationships, right? Yeah. So if it hadn't been for social media, it would have been very difficult for us to retain the types of relationships that we started at the large events that we were photographing, because you're in the midst of everything. But we connected with you guys on social media, so it really was an opportunity to pull at that thread and allow that relationship to sort of cultivate. Never would have happened before. But if we were so into just, like you said, the vanity and the superficial metrics, then that would have all been lost. So great job kind of identifying how you can use it as an extension as opposed to just kind of a superficial layer.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Actually, I'm gonna add a little action point here for the listeners, because the other day we brought Anthony Murphy, right? And he's an agency owner. He's from Australia. He has a really cool accent. And
cooler than the Hispanic accent that we have.
Cooler than the Hispanic accent.
Way cooler. Yeah.
And
agreed. Yeah.
And he was like, the action point that he gave was like, guys, every time you open social media, make a post, right? And I was like, wow, like that's awesome. We related it to habits and habit building. So guys, if you're listening, go watch the other episode. But I want to add a little something to that, right? Like in this relationship building topic that we have right now, and is when you open social media, make yourself your first action before, liking anything and like checking if your follower count went up or down, whatever. Go and make an intentional comment in somebody's post, or answer somebody's story in an intentional way, not a copy paste. Hey, what's up? I do this. Do you need any help? No, like an intentional way of, wow, I love the content that you're putting out there. Ask them questions relevant to what they want. At the end of the day, people also love to talk about them, right? And I mean, that is a fantastic way to build relationships. Not only that, you get to know them and their experience, and you never know, going back to, the first part of this podcast, you never know what you can learn from somebody else that is gonna like elevate your business as well.
It's interesting that you say that. So one of the things I found since getting involved more in sort of an internet and online marketing space, in social media, right? If you take traditional networking, you're in a room, you walk around, you give each other an elbow instead of a handshake, and then you engage in conversation about what the other person does, how long they've been doing it, things like that, right? And in that space, I want to say there's a lot of times where people have a negative feeling when somebody does that on social media. And when you're in the online space, I get lots of messages now from different contact points where somebody will friend me. And I'll be like, oh, they've Luis's are their friends. So I kind of have a connection there. So I let them in. And then they send me a message right away. Right? Hey, just so great. Thanks for connecting, blah, 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 blah. Tell me a little bit more what you do. Maybe we can help each other out. Right? I feel like if you're so rooted in traditional, that feels like an invasion. And it's so weird. What does this person want from me? What are they trying to get from me? When if you were to do that in a room. And so if there's people that are listening now that are moving into this space, you have to let that happen, and you have to be generous about responding to them and letting know, because that might be the person. It's like, hey, listen, I would love to have you on my podcast, or I would love to share your message if you. So it was just interesting because that clicked with me a while ago. And I just love getting them now. I write them back right away. Hey, that's so great. Here's what I do. What do you do?
Exactly. I love. Sorry, real quick. That you were talking about like what the universe wanted for you, right? And I mean, we grew up, or mom always said, everything happens for a reason, and it is always because of the best reason. Hey, if they are messaging you, it's for a reason, right? answer back. It doesn't. It might take you what, like 20 seconds. Answer back. Establish a relationship. What if they know someone you've been trying to connect for? I don't know how long, right? Or what happened if that's actually the person that might come in and help your business grow? And either way, like you don't lose anything.
I just want to imagine that the social scenario of like people talking to you and then you're never answering back. What happens if that happens in the real world, like in a room full of people, right? You'll see everybody not talking to each other. Like that's just so weird. So like they're gonna come to you, they're gonna introduce themselves. You're probably gonna answer something back. Yeah. It's just the same rules apply to social media. So I just find
that's a great way. Can you imagine somebody walks over to you and says, "Hey, I'm Luis. This is what I do. What do you do?" And you just turn around and walk away. So it's the digital equivalent.
Exactly.
Literally.
So talking about action points, Don, we really want you to share something with the audience. Look back at maybe a lesson that they can implement today. It could be something that you learned a few years back, something that you're learning right now, something that really means something big to you, but it can be executed immediately. We talked about execution, about taking action right now. What's something that people listening or watching can actually do today, this afternoon, or tomorrow morning?
Man, you put me right on the spot, but it's a good thing for you. I have been doing this for a very long time, and I have lots of opinions on what people should do. So when it comes to what I've been doing right now, I think the thing that I learned the most, and this is something I've always done, okay, that is not a good thing. I would always work something over so long and just I'd want it to be perfect, okay? Anecdotally, in the events industry, there's these documents you'd have to create to send out to the department heads, and I would want them to be perfect, right? I would labor over them and toil over them if I didn't have the information yet. And what people would say to me is like, listen, dude, just get it out. Let us see it. If you have to make revisions and update, that's okay. We just need to see the preliminary information. And that has been a tenet in my life. I think that I was just concerned about what people would think. It had to have a certain level of perfection before I felt like it was ready for general consumption. And one of the things I've learned is more is lost by indecision or thinking that something isn't perfect enough than just getting it done. Now, I will say, there's a saying, right? Done is better than perfect. That's true. But at the same time, you have to hit just a minimum level of professionalism, right? You can't just willy-nilly throw it out there and then just, because then I think people look at you like you're not consistent, you're not serious about what you're doing. So the one takeaway I would have is if you're thinking about doing something, identify what the minimum viable level of it is and just do it. Yeah. Because you can literally convince yourself, I don't look good enough to go Facebook Live right now. I haven't done my hair yet to do a Facebook Live right now. I don't have the perfect words to write that post right now. I don't think that person's going to write back to me, so I'm not going to write them right now. You can come up with a million different reasons. Yeah. And so one of the things I have just really been pushing myself to do is if you think you want to do it, make a very simple plan, simple sort of, this is the minimum viable level that it can get out there, and just do it.
Amazing.
Because if you don't, you'll just convince yourself to not do it forever.
Yeah, I don't know if you just noticed, but my brother and I looked at each other and we smiled. And it's because we love that whole concept of pew pew. We just love that concept of like minimum viability, I guess, if you can put it that way, right? And it's funny because Monday we had Jamie Atkinson in the show, which he helped.
Man, I love that.
Yeah, he's so cool,
he is
right?
So funny.
Yeah,
he's so funny.
And he actually has a minimum viable theory of his own as well.
Yeah.
And when we were talking to him, we're like, dude, we came up with our own like minimum viable theory, right? So I think it's awesome that you mentioned that, and I love it because, I mean, I was a victim of perfectionism. I'm not gonna lie, like I didn't publish for, again, 3 years because I wanted it to look the best, right? I wanted the best camera, the best light, the best mic.
To his standards.
Anything, to my standards, right?
To his standards, yeah.
I think, honestly, for me, that was just me putting an excuse on being afraid, right? Like, I'm afraid of taking action and maybe putting myself out there and getting judged by people, which is totally awesome, actually, bring it on. But it's like, Yeah, I don't know. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thanks for sharing. And you know, we cannot stress enough on that point. We've done it in several episodes. So if you're listening, please, guys, go ahead. If you're still thinking about, you know, taking action and put it out there, whatever you're doing, just do it. Receive feedback, learn from it, improve it, do it again. You're only gonna go up and get better at it. And you know, same thing happened with the conversation with Todd Brown. 20 years, and he said when he started, those cassette tapes were horrible. And then he took action, he learned, and then he moved forward again and executed. So go ahead. Thank you, Don, for like sharing that point of view. Amazing.
I want to add something to that because I'm new in this space, and some of the people you've been talking to have been doing this successfully for decades, and that's aspirational and it's motivational. I want to bring it down a level and let people know that like I literally have been creating content for, at this moment, 3.5 months maybe. Okay, and I'm not doing it right, probably according to some people's standards, but here's the deal. I was one of the people that was, every time people would say like you have to create content, you have to have your own platform, you have to, I was so resistant to it. And I'll tell you, I did it a few times, it was uncomfortable. I did it a few more times, it was less uncomfortable. As I'm doing it now, I really actually like it. Okay. And so if you're resistant to it, not only because you think it's just not perfect yet, but you think it's not for you, you think you're not going to enjoy it, I want to encourage you all to set maybe a reasonable number of times. Call it maybe 5, because you can count that on one hand. Do it 5 times. And I'll bet you if you don't overcomplicate it and you follow this principle of just set a minimum viable amount of professionalism to get it out, I'll bet you after 5 times, you'll be like, I don't know how I wasn't doing this before. Yeah. I look forward to the conversations I have with other people, and I look forward to the feedback that it helps other people. So that's one thing. From somebody who's a newbie, somebody who thought I would never be a content creator, here I am creating content and enjoying it. So
you're doing an amazing job. I'm telling you, I'll be like, man, Don, you've been doing these interviews for like 10 years. You're so good at them.
Well, thank you.
And I actually want to, relay what you just said to, it's a super cliche analogy, but is, the baby walking one. They get up, they fall, they get up, they fall, they get up, they fall, but they just keep trying. They don't care if they fall or not. And eventually, they're walking and one is chasing them and they don't stop ever, So thank you.
And it's hard to believe you never didn't walk, right? It's hard to look back and think, I mean, I've been walking my whole life, right?
Yeah.
And if you look back at some of those videos, and I learned this from watching Russell and a handful of other people, right? They'll show their videos. Peng Jun's first video, I don't know if you guys have the pleasure of seeing that.
It's painful.
So painful.
I mean, he's one of the heavy hitters in the game right now. He's exceptional. Yeah. And then you look back when he was learning, and it's so cool to have that persistent memory and being able to look back and be like, man, I can't believe I was ever sort of that green. So it's just it's a good way to look back and see how far you've come.
I love that, because you said, I can't believe how far I've come, right? And I think that right there, I don't want people to miss this. It's not other people saying, wow, how far has he come? It doesn't matter what other people think at the end of the day, right? Like, you are proud of yourself for taking action and growing and getting to where you are. I just love that, because that's how you just explained in a few words how I feel, and I'm sure my brother might feel this way too. But like, I see myself 3 months from now, 4 months ago, and I'm like, wow, like the change is massive, right? And I'm proud myself of us accomplishing that. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, I think that answers perfectly the question that I was gonna ask next, which is like, where will you be without publishing? And you kind of answer there. If you want to go dive in a little bit deeper, awesome. But you just like have grown so much according to what you said, and you're very proud of what you have achieved, and you can't wait to see this thing like evolve, which is exciting, right? Like,
we can't wait to see that.
We can't wait to see where it's going. Yeah, it's exciting to have those expectations.
Thanks for the support. Like, it's hard to imagine that you have a group of people that are sort of hanging on your next word or waiting to see what you do next. And as entrepreneurs and business folks, we don't always look up that often, right? Like, we're head down, driving through. And so it's really great to take a minute and thank you for the encouragement. I'd say the only other thing I'd say about where would I be if I wasn't doing content or publishing is I'd be much less further along, not even necessarily because I wouldn't be publishing. In my opinion, the worst thing that I could possibly do is make a promise that I don't keep.
Yeah.
And or not deliver on a promise. And so when I would say to people like, hey, I'm going to start doing this weekly, or hey, I'm going to come up with a guest about such and such because I think it's really important. My first interview was with Ayelet Shipley, who I'm sure you all know from Tom's daughter and from that world. But I did that because I kept hearing from people I was talking to, more one-to-one or small group, about anxiety, about trauma, about what we're going through. And I was like, all right, I forced myself to have a conversation thinking I wasn't going to be the guy that did conversations or podcast interviews and things like that. And when I was done with it, the feedback I got was like, you need to keep doing this. And so basically, to answer your question, long story long, accountability is everything. And so to have an audience that is looking at you and saying like, I can't wait till your thing next week, I'm not willing to let them down. So I'll do whatever it takes to find the right guest, find the right topic, plan for it, prep for it, and then have it. So that's the encouragement and the accountability we need to move forward.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it. You just hit a home run. Since we're soccer fans, I'm going to say you just score a golazo. But you just nailed it, honestly.
Dude, that was awesome. Donnie, it has been an absolute pleasure having you with us. Don't leave yet. Where can we find you? Where can people connect with you if they are digging this community, this conversation?
So easy to find me. I am literally trying to wallpaper the world. I'm on all the social media channels at Don Mamone. And my website is donmamone.com. So people can sign up for the newsletter there. I do a Zoom every Monday at 10 a.m. for people that want to pop in and have a chat, talk about the state of the world they need help with. And then I'll have some other resources coming out soon. So yeah, they can find me pretty easily or through you. You guys know how to get a hold of me.
Yes. They can send us a DM like, hey guys, what's up? I need Don. And I'm perfect. We'll send
we'll
send them
introduce
your
you
way.
guys.
By the way, if you are debating on that call at 10 a.m., it's amazing. I've been there a couple times, and it's so cool. You meet so many people from different backgrounds. And then it's literally an open mic and zero judgment zone where you can share your stuff.
Building the relationships.
Love it. It has been so great. So
before we go, Don,
I was ready.
I must confess, dude. I always pronounce your name the wrong way. I was always saying Mamone.
Mamone, come on, man.
Yeah, well that makes more sense. It makes more sense in the Hispanic culture.
But
in Italy they put the E on the end. They put the vowel on the end.
Yeah, I like it better, Mamone. It sounds.
I bet you do.
Don, just want to say I knew it the whole time. I was saying the right way.
I've been called far worse in either way, so it's okay.
It's all good. Well, with that being said, guys, thank you so much for staying with us the whole way. Please don't forget to subscribe. Smash that subscribe button and follow us on social media at The Beast Bros Co.
That's right, guys. And if you found this episode impactful, which I am sure you did, don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye.